And the new Kanye CD, I got it for him. Anyways, this story's called If There's Any Truth in a Northbound Train. I'm on a train going one way, and my twin brother Keith is on a train going the other way. Both of our noses look like a blown apart tulip. The same hot blood on our knuckles. The same problem of not knowing who the oldest is. Not knowing which of us should sign away their years and worship the other. The tickets are one last gift from our lying mother. When we were kids, she told Keith he was the oldest and told me I was the oldest and told each of us not to say a word about it. And neither of us did until Keith started a sentence with the phrase, "As the older brother," on the railway platform, and a few words later I punched him in the face and he punched me right back. I had a fistful of Keith's ear, crumpling the cartilage like dirty money, and I thought about our mother suspended above that 6-foot hole, big enough for all three of us if it came down to it. Trust, faith, whatever it's called. Everything is up for revision. If there's a God in the sky, if all men are truly brothers, if there's any truth on a northbound train. After a few hours of the big forever out my window, I get off in a town so green it makes my heart seize up. The girl working at the cafe next door is missing a foot. Diabetes, she tells me when I can't stop looking. Would you believe I used to weigh almost twice as much? Would you believe that I turned my life around? I go, they make trains for that, you know. Some people say Mary had other kids after Jesus, some not so immaculate conception with Joseph. Some people say otherwise, say that brother of Jesus is just a phrase. It doesn't matter either way. Would you rather be Jesus or Joe Jr.? My phone rings when getting back on the train. It's Keith who says I can be the bigger man before I tell him that it'll be a nice consolation for not being the older man. He hangs up. I call one of my aunts and she tells me she doesn't know who was born first. Same for all of my other aunts, all of my uncles, all of my cousins. I try calling the hospital, asking for records. I look up the numbers of old family friends and they either can't remember anything or they're dead. Back on the train, there's a drop of blood on my seat. It's mine or it's Keith's. I check my nose, check my knuckles. The train starts to move and I can't decide if I'd rather be watching it go. I get up to go to the bathroom, and on my way back I watch the horizon tumble low and wide out everyone else's window. It looks like the prairie parts of the country, but I can't tell. When I get back to my seat, I flag down one of the attendants and ask her, "Do you know which direction the sun is setting?" She points out the window toward the way the earth is spinning and says, "You'll never catch it." But there it goes. Sudden, you're kind of everywhere, and then all of a sudden you're back to nowhere and you owe a lot of people a lot of money. So, I don't know if that's possible anymore. It's certainly possible in this world that I'm writing about. And also sometimes people disappear and they're your wife. So, I'm going to have you read the chapter titles because I think it messes up my flow to read you 36 chapter titles. We'll see how that goes. Also, I pray the wind leaves me the hell alone for a little bit. Chapter 1. I wake up and see a note I wrote to myself in the middle of the night. It says, the phrase "a blue moon" refers to an event that occurs every 2 to 3 years. Now what? We'll see how that goes. My side of the bed, her side of the bed. How many days in a row can Holiday be gone before these things don't matter? So far, 3. I think of the last time it happened and the time before that, and the first time, and the moment right after the first time, when she told me she was almost alone enough. Trying to decide which of us she wanted to get away from more. At a coffee shop with Barry Meyer, I ask him what exactly is a high-powered lunch. He tells me it's just a business meeting with food. Barry asks if I've seen anything worth seeing lately. Fine feathers make fine birds, I say. He puts his hands in his pockets and pulls a piece of gum out of each. Right, who has the time, he says. Barry and I walk into a record store. I can tell the two guys working are fighting because one of them is playing a Black Sabbath record over the house system and the other one is playing a different Black Sabbath record over the display system. Can I help you? One of them asked. Can I help you? The other one asks. So, any ideas? Barry asks me back at his office. I take a deep breath and then he says the word financially, and then I just kind of let it out. I feel like I'm holding myself hostage, Barry. That's a very human thing to feel, he says. Years ago, Barry Meyer signed my band, the Summer Brews, to a contract that was undeniably bigger than us and thus irresistible. We didn't blow advances or rent sports cars, but we didn't make financially viable music either. Barry went against the advice of everyone else at the record label and absorbed our private debt. My private debt as sole songwriter, as his own. Now I meet with him every once in a while and try to even up the $400,000 I owe him by eating all the M&Ms in his office. Surely I'm not the first one to explain band politics as they relate to ideas of governing a municipality, he says. But I think it's time you start to think of the Summer Brews not as something you and others did for the sake of itself when you were younger, but as something you can do for yourself right now. Are you trying to commercialize the things inside of me, Barry? Only the things that escape, he says. His lawyer's already getting the milk in my fridge repossessed. Seven-Minute Dave was the drummer for the Summer Brews. I find out about his cancer from Barry in an email. He uses the phrase questionably terminal. Questionably terminal. What does that even mean? I write back. Less than a minute later, I get a reply that just says, "Of course, I forgot that you like to be told twice." I used to play in the Summer Brews with a woman named Moxie Briggs, and around that same time, I loved her. Twice in the past month, Moxie has texted me a picture of her Mercedes. I hope a helicopter lands on it. People see Moxie's house and think she has 3 bathrooms and a terrace because she played in a few bands, but the truth is that she's the co-owner of Grove Farms, someplace in Michigan that is less a farm and more a place that manufactures honey. She leaves me voicemail because I don't answer the phone. The voicemail is always the same, saying, "Michigan is beautiful whatever time of year you decide to come through." I think everyone has something that nobody can tell them anything about, Barry Meyer tells me. That's why he's calling, at 4 a.m. Holiday's not home, I say. "See, that's what I mean," he says. I go online and look at all the music videos I'm in. This takes an hour. The one I watched twice is for a song called Durexes and O's. In it, I'm singing into one side of a cow's skull, and Wheeler, the bassist for the Summer Brews at the time, is singing into the other. The narrative is that we're fighting for the cow's skull to be in the video as a representation of an artistic something I can't remember, and the producers don't want it in there. So, in the video, we end up not making the video. It's part tribute to a bad montage and part bad montage, part of a mirror and part of a wall. Things I saw the second time, but not the first. Holiday in the background and a shot outside the studio. A fly knocking against my glasses during the bridge. Barry Meyer standing against a wall eating an apple in one of the argument scenes. 7-Minute Dave coughing, 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 coughing. Things I saw the first time, but not the second. A band in trouble. A future curled up like a broken ampersand. I call 7-Minute Dave and suggest a reunion. A full-scale, tell the old college kids we're back together reunion. Dave says, maybe, ask why we broke up in the first place. I don't even think about it. Pick 2 or 3 reasons from the breakup section of the Rock and Roll Handbook, and that's why the Summer Brews isn't a band anymore. For Christ's sakes, Dave, watch a documentary or something. Just don't ask me about it. Dave calls me back later and asks me why I really wanted to get the Summer Brews back together. "I just miss you and think this is what we need," I tell him. "It just feels right." Science is a funny thing, he says. "Want to be in the Summer Brews?" I ask Moxie on the phone. She laughs, says, "Do you?" If you scream about molecules long enough, somebody will listen. I tell myself that if I make it 5 days without calling Holiday, I'll give myself a prize. The prize is $10 million. A game Dave and I used to play is framed as, would you rather be with this band you hate at the height of their success and enjoy all the empty glory? Would you rather be with this band that you love at the low point in their career and see something beautiful wither? This is not a game to play for keeps. The question isn't whether or not I'd put Moxie in a jar, it's whether or not I'd poke holes in the top. Holiday keeps a series of lists in a box that she has been hiding very poorly and for no reason. The only things in it are scraps of paper with headings like All the Birds I Know and Shapes. There's one that says Places for Bones at the top, and the only thing underneath it is the word body. The thing most people don't know about 7-Minute Dave is that he used to be 3-Minute Dave, and that every 7 or 8 years I dock him a couple minutes just to keep him honest. In exchange for guitar lessons, a man named Nathan teaches me the base level moralities of Peruvian knife fighting. We'll use silverware for now, he says. He puts a spoon in my hand and tells me how to stand. Open your other palm and hold it a few inches in front of your neck. Let your forearm fall down a bit in front of your lungs, heart, and stomach. But all that stuff is wider than my arm, I say. He stands in front of me holding a lemon zester like a bouquet of flowers and says, that's not the point. Does this look like business, or does this look like business? Then he snaps into place, protected, but he's right. That's not the point. The Summer Brews had 6 different bassists over the course of 5 years. Wheeler stayed the longest, so he's the one I try to get in touch with after Moxie. I search for him online and it says he's playing mandolin in a folk band now under his real name, Wesley. I draft an email that starts, Dear Wheeler, and then change it to, Hey Wesley. I leave everything else the same. Then I take off any sort of greeting and change the email address to mine instead of his. I open it up on my phone when it pops up in the inbox a second later, read through it like I'm him. It doesn't sound too bad, like I can almost tolerate myself for a bit if I really wanted to. I get a text from Barry that says, it's bad business for me to wait much longer for a solution to come up on your end. I take Barry's name off it and forward it to 7-Minute Dave, who just sends back an ellipsis. After I finally send that email to Wheeler, I check out his folk band. They sound like the sort of band where everyone in it is named Wesley. Before the next song finishes, I get a response from him that just says, get fucked. The next song sounds like a pep rally for a school where they teach you how to act like how people think Bob Dylan thinks other people should act. I send Wheeler the following email. W, here are a few revisions for your life I was thinking about recently. 1, stop turning your bike lights on. And 2, not so much a revision as it is a statement of fact. The last person to find magic in one boring chord on a banjo probably died on a mountain. I watch a TV show about voodoo dolls. It turns out that voodoo dolls aren't really a remote control as much as they're an appeal to a higher power, a way to bend fate. Later on, I twist the corners of a pillow and think of Wheeler, but it's my own ears that start to burn. At this gas station on the way to meet 7-Minute Dave, there's a painting of Mamie Eisenhower on the door of the women's room and a painting of Ozzy on the door of the men's. The first 10 years of his success were the last 10 years of her life, and it's interesting to think about their lives not intersecting and not being parallel and not having anything to do with one another at all, except coexisting on the same planet for a short period of time. But I don't think of any of this until I get done thinking, who's got the time to paint Mamie Eisenhower? I meet 7-Minute Dave in a diner halfway between our homes. Everything in the room is painted the same color. Maybe we should start at the beginning, he says, probably not meaning mozzarella sticks. Dave says he'll do it. An album, a tour, a promotional campaign where we talk drive-time DJs out of committing suicide, whatever. He's got the kind of list of demands that are half warning shots and half empty threats. the kind that means somebody's going to have to buy him a belt buckle with his name on it if things get out of hand. I need my wife there too, he says. The one you've got now or the next one, I ask, thinking of Janelle, Dave's one and only honeydew sugar something or another. Dave smiles, gaunt but with great teeth. Two things he's not about to let me forget. I'm fucked up. I'm missing one in here. This one's called isolation research. When I met Dave, he would go on long motorcycle rides by himself. He said it was isolation research. I always thought that sounded great. Maybe not actually doing it, but the sound of it. Compared to most, one of us talks less, and one of us talks more. Take a guess. I'm not saying it's unfair Moxie got her shit together. I'm just saying that I used to watch her boil an entire pan of water until it was gone and then look at me and go, right? How do I know Holiday has gone for good? I guess I don't, but even people who had to install lights into coal mines didn't go a week with no contact. I call the police. I'd like to report a missing person, I say. The officer asks me, what information can you tell me regarding this person? I chew my thumb past the first knuckle and onto the second, say, women's underwear is great until you have to fold it. I'm with Barry when I get an email back from Wheeler that's just a list of stuff I already know. I don't have to like him and he knows how to do math and time as an idea can't compare to time as an actuality. And that he thinks I'm full of shit. And that he'll do it anyways, and that he has a list of demands bigger than 7-minute Dave's, and I'm going to give in to all of them because he's not an idiot and I am, because he knows how to read a contract and I apparently do not. I slide the phone over to Barry. Where you see a breach of ethos, he says, I see something else. I don't have to ask him to know that the something else is not you. I remember when I met Holiday, she said, you're in a band, right? Like an orchestra? I knew I could ride those two sentences for 5 years, maybe 10. I start writing Dave an email that has more of the truth in it than what I had been previously presented to him. But then I just transfer the key words to a post-it and then put both in different trash cans. My first email address was named after Boulevard Trask, the guy from the X-Men comics who invented the Sentinels. He looked like Walt Disney and thought mutants were a threat to humanity. After that, I switched to one based on Bill Lambier's name, the basketball player who threw so many elbows and got so many fouls that there was eventually a video game named after him that was something like an NBA edition of The Running Man. I had a few that sounded like a Billy Joel cover band. One was a pun on Mussolini's hat collection. Something about the history of bad men hits me just right. Thank you.
Yeah.